So today we are going to understand about SDLC models. See, models over here, you can say methodologies also you can say. Okay. Both of them means approach. Okay. See, we have understood this process, which is depicted phase to phase. As in testing is one phase, deployment is one phase, maintenance is another phase, right? So this we have understood sequentially, one by one. Okay. Now we can use it. We can use that process in our own way. Okay. So that based on that approach, these model names or methodology name will change. So the very first one is waterfall model. What does waterfall means? Basically, it's a waterfall the way water falls from the upstream to downstream. Okay. So the same way we are going in a sequential order. Okay, we are gathering the requirement, going for design phase, coding, testing, and lastly maintenance. So we are going in a very sequential way in one particular stream, that is downwards. We cannot go from implementation or coding from coding to requirement stage. We cannot do that. Okay, because this is the approach what this waterfall model states, that we have to follow the entire SDLC process in a sequential order in one particular manner or fashion. So what is important over here? We should have our requirement as fixed. Okay, in case our requirement is changing, then this waterfall model is of no use, because constantly the requirement is getting changed. We might be in coding or testing phase and our requirement got changed. We have to be flexible. We have to again perform or do these things, design, coding. So that is what waterfall does not support. Okay, waterfall model does not support requirement change in between the process. So if you guys have, if the client has mentioned a requirement, that requirement will be finished, delivered, and then new work will start. Okay, with new requirements, new project or new things will be started. So that is what is waterfall. Okay, so some portion is mentioned over here. See, it was actually adopted in the early days of software development. Earlier, like when we used to study this SDLC and software development, then at time we used to like study about waterfall model, and even the IT companies used to follow waterfall model. But that is not the right approach, or not always the right approach, I would say, which will give you fruitful results, because at this particular time client may change their requirement. They may uh, come up with new requirements like after 15 days or 25 days or something, because their requirement themselves, they are not sometimes clear, okay, what they want from the application. So and the business also changes their models. Okay. So that is why waterfall model is very less used. So advantage over here is that if the requirement is small, then we can follow waterfall model, and we are aware that this is the requirement and we will be following the same till the last step. That is one advantage. Disadvantage is that we are not flexible. It does not give flexibility to take the changes of the new requirement. If new requirement comes in, we are not flexible enough to take up those changes. So that is a disadvantage. Then now comes iterative over incremental. So this is iterative one. Okay, this diagram represents iterative and this is incremental one. So with the iterative word, you can see there is an iteration, as in kind of a loop, isn't it? So planning happens, or requirement gathering, planning, analysis, design, coding, testing. This is in iteration. This keeps on happening. this keeps on happening, okay, till the time we complete our product or requirement. So on one particular requirement, this iteration will be repeated multiple times. As in, we will be planning, we will be doing requirement gathering, we will be planning, we will be designing analysis, and then coding testing. Again, we might go for a review of the software. Then based on the software feedback, okay, based on the feedback of the client, we might again go for defining requirements, planning, and all those things, right? So we are iterating one process multiple times to deliver one software or requirement. Okay, so that is nothing but iterative way of development. If you are repeating the entire cycle, entire SDLC cycle multiple times, okay, to deliver a project or a requirement, then it is iterative. Simple to understand. Then incremental model. See, with the name, if you understand incremental, means you are giving the software in increments, small increments. Okay. So over here, consider you have a big requirement, as in you have 20 to 30 piece of different modules or functionality to deliver. Now that 20 to 30 requirements, we can subdivide. Okay, we can divide into like two requirements or three requirements at a time. Okay, in one go, and then following waterfall approach on one particular release. Okay, we have divided the requirement into pieces, and then for each piece we are following the waterfall model approach. So we are going for analysis, design, implementation, and so on, maintenance, and then release one. So then that will be given as a release one. Then again another set of requirements. We will follow the same approach, waterfall model. We will be giving release two. And then we have to combine this release also. Release one and release two will be combined. See, you will be part of this, what you say, SDLC process. Your work will be over here in testing phase. But this you have to understand as a process. This is nothing but a process which is followed in any IT industry. So if you are working in an industry, then you should be aware that what approach or what process the company or team is following. Okay, definitely your work will be very much different. It will be specific to testing activities only. But this is an overall approach, which project manager or some person who is leading the entire project will be taking care of. He will be coordinating or liaising with different team members. But then we have to understand the entire approach. That is why we are learning this part. Okay. So interview based, if you think, they might ask you SDLC process. What are the phases in software development lifecycle? They might ask you that question. Okay. Then it might happen they might ask you some specific model, SDLC model. Explain iterative model. What do you understand by iterative model, or what do you understand by incremental model? That they might ask. Generally, these are not asked. The maximum or the most popular one, I would say, is VNV. So nowadays, VNV, or you can say verification and validation, is widely used in the industry. The reason is, in case of verification and validation, the testing starts at the early stage of the life cycle. Okay, we have understood, okay, this as a principle, early testing. So in case of verification and validation, we are starting testing from the early stage of the life cycle. In all these models, you will find testing as separate phase, which is happening after the coding part. See, deployment, implementation, and then testing. So everywhere testing is done after the coding phase. But in case of VNV, testing actually starts at the initial phase, that is over here itself. Okay, from the user requirement itself. Okay. So let me show you another diagram. Okay, and then we will understand this verification, validation. Okay, this as a definition, we will understand that, and we'll understand the difference between them. Okay, and when verification happens, validation happens. So that we will understand. So let me open up that. So this is the diagram. So this left hand side portion, okay, this is called as verification. Okay, left hand side portion is called as verification, and the right hand side portion is called as validation. Okay, it is also called as developer's life cycle, and validation is also called as tester's life cycle. Okay, why developer's life cycle? Because development is happening over here. From the user requirement, we are coming with BRD, SRS, and then coding is happening. Okay? So development phase is there, as in we are developing the application. So that is why this is called as developer's lifecycle. But over here you can see everything is testing. Every thing mentioned over here as in unit testing, integration testing, system, UAT. These all are nothing but testing activities. So we are testing the application, whatever has been delivered to us. So over here, requirement from requirement, the application is being developed, and over here in the right hand side, application is being tested. So that is why it is called as tester's life cycle, and this is called as developer life cycle. The life cycle is starting from beginning to end. Then one more term you have to understand, that is static testing, and the other one is dynamic testing. So what do you understand by, or you, how, what is the difference between static and dynamic? What you feel as a simple English language, not from testing point of view. What is the difference between static and dynamic? Fixed, right? Dynamic means movable. Movable, right? So static means which is fixed or which is stationary. Dynamic means which is changing. Okay, that way. So over here you can understand this user requirement would be mentioned in a document. This BRD, SRS, this would be mentioned in a document. It could be a PDF, it could be a Word document. So that can that requirement be functional in nature? As in, see, in case of dynamic, if you see the application, if you click on a button, some action happens. Then if you click on a login button, you get user gets login. If you click on delete button, one record is getting deleted. So some action is happening, functionality is running. So that is why it is called as dynamic. But over here, everything is in written form. If I see, if I say this PDF, is anything changing over here? As in, if I click on this area, will it change anything? No, right? So this is static in nature. It is very much fixed, stationary. Okay. So documentation part, if you want to check the documentation part, we are testing means to check, to verify. Okay. So if we are verifying the documentation part, then it is called as static testing. But if we are testing the application which is running, okay, at this level at the right hand side, after coding, we will be getting the application and we have to test the application. So if we are testing the application, then we are actually performing dynamic testing, because application we are clicking on a button, we are typing something, okay, and we are checking the actions, operations, or you can say functionality. So that is what is dynamic. So this is the basic difference between static and now how to perform static testing. How to perform static testing? See, if we go for, if I say you have to check this documentation, you have to verify this documentation. So how would you do that? How would you do that? If I ask you to check this document, okay, and come up with the defects or observations,
We will read.
right? So you just have to read it. Okay, you have to read the document and you have to understand the document. So you should have the domain knowledge first of all, and then you should be reading the document, understand what is being written, and based on your understanding, you will come up with observations or suggestions. Or if you don't understand anything, you might come up with your some questions or queries. So that process of reading and coming up with observations is called as review. This term we all know. Review means to review. It could be a reviewing an email, reviewing any document which is in written form. So that process is called review. Whereas over here we will call it as functional testing. In case of dynamic, we will be doing functional testing because functionality हम check करें. We are testing the functionality of the application. So that is what is called as functional. Functional means anything which is functional in nature. You perform some action and some result. You are getting some result. Okay, you click on a button, you type something, or you drag. Okay, something. So that is like you are performing something. So that is functional. So that is functional. Okay, understood with these terms. Okay. So by performing static testing or by performing review at the early stage of life cycle, that ensures that whatever defects or because of any mistake happened at this particular instance, it is corrected over here itself. So very minimal set of defects are like lead over here, or it is um, carry forward over here, and then testing team finds out. So very minimal set of defects are found out at the testing level because we are performing static testing at this level. Now let's go with the definition of verification and validation. So what does verification states? So you can see the arrow. Okay, just observe the arrows. This arrow is in downwards direction. Right. So what does verification states? It is to verify at each interim phase. Okay, interim means intermediary phase. It is to verify at each interim phase whether you are going in right direction or not. As in, you have the user requirement, okay, whatever is been mentioned by user, end user or business user, it is all communicated and noted down in BRD. We have understood what is BRD, right? High level document. So whatever is mentioned over here, is it carry forward and mentioned perfectly the same way? Again, whatever is mentioned in the BRD, is it carry forward and depicted in the SRS with the same meaning? Okay. Again, what is mentioned in the SRS, same thing. Coding is happening on the basis on that. Okay. So we are checking at each intermediary level whether we are going in this right direction or not. Right? It happens, right? If you are working in a very big team with a team size of, say, for example, 20 to 30 people, miscommunication or misunderstanding might happen. Okay, between 2 3 people also misunderstanding happen. If I say anything, the other person might take out any other meaning of that particular sentence. He might convey the same sentence or in a different manner to third person, saying that okay, that person said this thing, okay, he means this thing. So whatever I have told was in a very different way, but it was understood in some another way and then it communicated ahead. So these things might happen in industry also. So that is what we have to check, and that is called as verification. We have to check whether whatever has been stated over here, same thing has been communicated with the same meaning in BRD. Whatever has been stated in BRDs with the same meaning we are communicating in the SRS, and whatever has been SRS based on that coding is happening, right? So this is nothing but verification. We are checking each and every document. So not necessarily verification is to be done by testing team only. See, coding time we can have code review. Okay, we can have code review. Okay, the code review means you have to test the code, whatever has been coded, whether the code is of optimal level. Okay, whether the coding standards been followed, comments are properly mentioned. Okay, so those things can be reviewed as part of code review. Okay, we don't have to run the code. We have to just review the whatever has been written as a code. So that is code review. So this is nothing but definition of a verification. Understood up till this part, verification. This is important because many times this has been asked as an interview question. You will be asked what is the definition of verification, what verification means, or what happens in verification phase. Okay, that might they might ask in a different way. So VNV model is very important. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, your role will be over here. Your actual role as a tester would be over here. But this is the entire process of development of a software. Could be any software, mobile software, website, desktop, any kind of software. This is the entire process. Sure. Now we'll understand definition of validation. So what does validation means? So now understand this arrow, parallel arrows. So it says it is to validate whether, whatever has been told. Okay, whatever has been told, we have achieved it or not. So whatever has been mentioned in the user requirement, the user himself will check in the UAT phase, acceptance testing. See, when I am giving a requirement to any development company that I want these many functionality in my application, so that development company will be developing that particular requirement, okay, functionality. Then once they are handing over the software to me, I will definitely go and check whatever I have told, whether it is there in the application or not, and then only I will pay them. So the same thing happens over here. Whatever has been mentioned in the user requirement, everything has been communicated or everything has been checked at the UAT phase, acceptance testing. The user will do an acceptance testing. Once he accepts, then the release will go live. Okay, so it can be done by end user or business user. End user, it's like we are an end user. WhatsApp, we are using WhatsApp, Facebook. So we are end user. We could be business user if the software is developed internal for internal purpose. So we have given the requirement and we are the business user, we will be testing the application or confirm. Right? So that is business. So that is validation. It is to validate whatever has been done. So coding, when see against coding, we are performing unit testing. This is performed by developers. Okay? This is performed by developers. So developer will be performing this activity, unit testing. So what does unit testing means? Unit testing means whatever simple to simple code, or you can say smallest to smallest code or functionality is been written by developer. Developer will be running that code and he will be checking that whether it is functioning properly or not, or whether it is running properly or not. So whatever code he has mentioned or written, whether it is running properly or not, smallest to smallest code, that is unit testing. Okay. So validation means it's like parallel activity. From against SRS, we will be doing integration testing. Against VRD, we will be performing system testing. Against user requirement, we will be performing UAT. Clear with this part? VNV, verification and validation. All of you guys understood this part? Let me know if you have any questions or doubts. Anything from this diagram? Yes, no, or should I move ahead?
सर वो जो यूनिट टेस्टिंग डेवलप मतलब डेवलपर ही करेंगे.
Unit testing is done by developers. Unit testing is done by developers. UAT is done by end user or business user. System testing, integration, these two things are done by testers. So if someone asks you, okay, who all does testing? So testing is done by three people. One is developer, testers, and business user or end user. So three people do testing. Guys, any questions or doubts, or should I move ahead? you're not answering, then I'll assume that you have understood the question. Understood it is fine. So this is the difference between verification and validation. Okay. So verification is the process of evaluating products of a development phase to find out whether they meet the specified requirements and so on. So just go through this definition of differences. Need not to learn each and everything. Okay, need not to when asked in interview, need not to go with each and every statement. If you just give a basic definition also, this is a very sufficient difference between verification and validation. Or you can say this definition, then verification is also called as developer lifecycle. Static testing happens through review. In validation, it is called as tester's lifecycle. Dynamic testing and functional testing happens. These are differences. Now, software test levels. Now, these are test levels: unit testing, integration, system, and acceptance. See, these are unit testing, integration, system, and UAT. So, these are your software test levels. As I mentioned, unit testing is done by developers, and it is also called as component testing. So, a very smallest to smallest code, okay, or see, the code written is in parts or units, and the units are usually constructed in isolation, as in there would be multiple developers. Okay, there could be 3 4 developers working on a particular system or building a system. So a particular developer will be building one particular functionality. So once he is creating that functionality, it's not like that he has completed the entire functionality and then he will check. And it could be the case that that functionality is dependent on another module or functionality, right? So he might develop a smallest code and he will run and check whether it is working fine or not. So that is what it says. Unit testing is intended to ensure that the code written for the unit meets the specification prior to its integration with other units. Integration means combining or joining. Okay. So before it is combined or joined or integrated, it is tested at the developer's end, whether it has been functioning or not. Okay. And over here it mentions unit testing is usually performed by developer. Okay. Some advantages and limitations are there. You can just go through it. No one is going to ask you, but you should be aware of it. This you should be aware, like what is unit testing and who does it. That is important. Then comes integration testing. So with the term integration, what do you mean? What does integration mean? See, the very first line says testing the combined parts of an application. When you combine multiple modules or functionalities, isn't it? See, we can give a you can say we have we can have leave module and we can have payroll module, right? You can say these two are combined or they might work with each other. As in, if you apply a leave and it is accepted, okay, accordingly your pay would be generated or salary would be calculated. If you have lapsed all the leaves, okay, company holidays, then your pay would be deducted. So we can say these are two integrated with each other. They work in a combined way. Okay. So that is what is nothing but called as integration. If you are testing or you are applying for a leave, accepting it, okay, or rejecting it, then accordingly your pay is generated or you are checking this payroll module. So you cannot check directly payroll module in separate. You cannot test it, right? Can we test it without leave module? No, we would be applying some leaves, okay, multiple leaves, accepting, rejecting, and accordingly your payroll model will be affected. So this can be checked only in conjunction with leave model, isn't it? Same way you can say there is admin model, and then we have user model. So admin creates a user or an employee. Say for example, there is an admin user. He might be if you are going for a you are working as an employee in a company. So the HR or the main admin person will be making an entry into the system. Okay, he will be creating your employee ID. Okay, filling out your all details, personal details. Okay, contact details and everything. So then you will be getting your login credentials for that system. So can you check this module separately? If you don't have admin module, we cannot test it. So unless and until user is created, how can we test this user module? So this is all also integrated. Unless and until we create a user in the database and then we can check it. But unless and until we have this from functionality point of view, if we create a user at the admin level, then only we can log in as a user. Okay. So this is called as integration test. Okay. Now there are different areas, as in one is incremental integration. We have heard about this word incremental recently, right? What was that? Incremental model, right? So in this, we are giving releases in multiple increments. And at that time also I have told you, we will be integrating these releases and testing it. So this is nothing but incremental integration. You are giving one release, you are giving another release, third release, and you are combining those releases also. And then you are checking the combined release in one way. So release 1 would be separately tested. Once you have release 2, release 1 and release 2 will be combined. And then together they will be tested. So that is integration test. And that is called as incremental integration. Okay. Again, this is all theoretical in nature. They might ask you just from a theoretical point of view. Practical approach is very much different. Then comes top-down and bottom-up integration. Consider this module A, module B. This is for just representation, as in if we test from the higher module to the bottom level module. If we do an entry over here and we are checking those entries are being carry forward or being reflected in other modules or functionalities, then we are doing top-down approach. And if you are doing anything changes in the lower modules, or you can say right lower modules, and then those changes are reflected in the higher modules, then that is what is bottom up. So over here we can understand that in case of a admin model, if admin, okay, makes changes in a particular user, in a particular user, he changes, I'll say, he changes what he can do. See, name change can be done. Okay, a person can change his name or his or her name in his lifetime. So that, what do you say, uh, responsibility would be of admin. A user cannot change his name directly. He has to take a permission of admin, and admin will be doing those changes because that is very important, as it will be reflected in the entire application across the organization. So admin is changing a particular username, and that would be reflected in the user model. So changed name is reflected, okay, in user level. Okay, at user is reflected at user level. So we can say this is top-down integration. We are doing some changes at this level, and that has been reflected over here, and we are testing, okay, this has been reflected or not. So this is top down. Now, okay, in case of bottom down, oh sorry, bottom up, bottom up will say we are user is adding one certificate. He has cleared one exam, technical exam, and he is adding a certificate, or he has added a certificate. He has added a certificate, a soft copy of that certificate over here, and admin will be accepting it. Okay, after thorough checking of that certificate and all those things, he is accepted. So this is getting reflected over here. So whatever has been added over here, that has been reflected over here in the admin model, and accordingly being accepted by the admin person, isn't it? So this is nothing but bottom up integration. We are making changes in the lower module, and it has been reflected in the higher module. So this is called as bottom up integration. Clear? So this is what is the difference between top down and bottom. Generally, in IT company, no one is going to tell you this is a top module or this is a lower module. Okay, we have to make our own understanding. So the moment you start working in application, with experience, you will understand all these things. Okay. We don't have to go with the terms. Okay, I am doing top-down testing, I am doing bottom-up integration testing. We won't be doing or discussing that part. This is just for interview point of view. They might ask you what is top-down integration, bottom. In practical world, everything is different. This is all theoretical. Sure. Now system testing, the last one. No, we have UAT also, right? So except system testing. Now system means the entire system, entire software, application, a working software. So that is a system. So definitely system would be integrated thoroughly. First, multiple small modules are there, and those modules are integrated, and then we come up with a system. So in this type of testing, we check the complete and fully integrated software based on the SRS. Okay, based on the SRS, or you can say BRD, the entire fully integrated software has been tested. We have to check the business, functional, and end user requirements. Okay, so entire whatever has been mentioned in the BRD, we will be testing the system with that particular BRD, okay? And that is how we will be checking the entire system, whether entire system is working fine or that is system testing. Then lastly comes acceptance testing. It is also called as user acceptance testing. So it is also in short form as UAT. Okay. So acceptance testing is also called as user acceptance testing, or UAT. So UAT is performed at the end of all testing activities when everything has been tested from testing point of view, developers point of view. So then UAT will be performed. So this is done as a final stage before system goes live. Before the application goes live, we have to perform this UAT, or end user will be doing this UAT. And if the end user says yes, then it goes live. Otherwise, it might go for some changes or correction. Okay. So acceptance testing is black box testing and does not involve negative scenarios. Black box means you are not dealing with the code. Okay, you are not dealing with the code. Code level we are not doing the testing. We are testing the functional requirement, whatever we can interact. See, whichever website or mobile application you use, you are interacting with the application. At any point of time, can you see the code behind it? No. So that is called as black box. Okay. Later in coming chapters, we will understand about black box. Now there are different types of UAT. There are two types of UAT. One is alpha and the other one is beta. Okay. I'll show you this in one of the. So this is our Selenium Java bindings, okay, library files. And you can see over here there was 3.14.5 and this was a release version. It was done on November 14, 2018. From April 2004, 24 April 2019, there was an alpha release, alpha 1, 2, 3, 7, and then beta release went. And then now the final stable release was 4.0.0 that is on October 13, 2021. So this was the stable release. Before that stable release, these were alpha and beta releases. So in case of software development, these kind of releases will be there. Okay. Now what that means actually? So alpha testing, it is carried out by the customers. Both the alpha and beta both are done by customers only, end users or customers. Okay. It means same, customer and end user will mean same. So both are done by same person, end users or business user. But this is done at the developer side or developers network. And this is done without the help of developers. As in you are testing from your home or from your office premises. Okay. Say for example, there is an office X located in some region, and there is office Y, which is our office, client's office. Okay. Office Y, which is in other region. So if the client goes to the developer's office or region, okay, and they are testing in their machines, their system, so then it is called as alpha. And if the user is testing from their own office, okay, from their system, from their environment, then it is called as beta testing. Okay, so this is a basic difference between alpha and beta. So generally these are some questions which might be asked in interview. Alpha and beta, what do you mean by alpha and beta? And so important part is VNV, and important part is this UAT, unit testing or integration testing. That might be asked in interview. So types of testing. I believe we'll start with types of testing in next session only because it is comprising of multiple things, okay? Multiple definitions I would say. And so we'll complete functional and non-functional both in the next session. That too on Wednesday. It will be on Wednesday.